Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile, the podcast. This is episode 240 called Heather Passaro. And now a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by First Response. First Response is fervently committed to supporting, sharing, and empowering all pregnancy journeys. They're passionate about providing accurate information, especially to those struggling with infertility, the loss of a baby, and maternal health inequities. First Response knows that when testing for pregnancy, you want to be sure of your results. That's why they created Comfort Check, a pregnancy test kit that helps you test confidently and conveniently. The First Response Comfort Check Pregnancy Test Kit is a value pack containing 8 total tests, 3 First Response Early Result Tests, and 5 First Response Pregnancy Test Strips, allowing women to test early and often for added reassurance. First Response's Early Result Test, included in the Comfort Check Kit, is their #1 best-selling pregnancy test. It detects all major forms of the pregnancy hormone commonly found in urine and is over 99% accurate from the day of your expected period, with results ready to be read in just 3 minutes. The First Response Comfort Check Pregnancy Test Kit is available for purchase in-store and online. Be sure to pick one up today. Thanks, First Response. All right, guys. So my guest today is so interesting and cool. Her name is Heather. She is 47 years old and she is pregnant with her first child via embryo adoption. So she is going to tell us all about how she got to where she is today, everything she and her husband went through, including IUIs, ICSI, IVF, thinking that IVF was a guarantee like so many of us do, and so much more. She's also going to tell us how she had never heard of embryo adoption before, how she wishes she did at the beginning of her journey. She said she would have done this years ago had she known. So hoping to spread the word about embryo adoption as well. And, if you're listening to this and you didn't know that that was an option, it is. So listen to this episode and then look into it because it's a very cool thing and another way to pivot if you're going through this and have kind of exhausted some other options. So thank you so much to Heather. Without further ado, this is Heather's infertility story. Hi, Heather. How are you today?
How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for doing this. Let's give our spoiler alert right off the top. You are currently pregnant, right?
I am 6 months pregnant, which is some days, I'm not going to lie, I kind of have to remind myself and look down like this really did happen because it's been a long journey that I never thought would ever happen. And now it's happened. And I have to constantly remind myself like, this really worked and you're really having a baby.
Okay. So can you share with us how old you are right now?
Yes, I can. I am 47 and pregnant.
Amazing. I love this. Okay. So let's get into it. Like we met at an event and you came up to me and we were talking about my podcast. And then you said, I'm 47 and I'm pregnant. And I was like, amazing. And you said, I'd love to share my story. So let's just start from the beginning. I always love to ask, did you always want to be a mom?
You know what? Yes and no. I know that sounds a little strange here, but I think that I met my husband when I was 35. We got married at 36. I want to say at you never really know that there's going to be a problem. You're like, oh, I'll have a baby at 37.
Yeah, nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them, right?
Exactly. You never think it's going to happen to you. And so we got married. I was 36. My husband is 4 years younger than me. And I was like, well, I'm finally married. I want to take time and just enjoy being married. So I think it wasn't until about 38 that we started trying. And we were like, ooh, 2 months goes by, no luck. 3 months goes by, no luck. 6 months. Let's go see the fertility doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And you get like this sort of crazy awakening that you're like, but I'm only 38. And they're like, yeah, and that's old. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yes. Wait, let's dig into that a little bit. Heather, did you know anything about your fertility or like how as you got older, it was going to be
No,
harder. The reason I ask is because I really didn't know any of that when I was.
I didn't know any of that either. And
Okay.
look, I got my period when I was 14 or 15. I've had regular periods my whole life. I've had not a single issue. I was never had endometriosis. I never had any problems whatsoever. So I didn't think getting pregnant was going to be a problem. And I guess I was just completely clueless that, you really should start trying to have a baby at 30. I mean, at 30, I couldn't even figure out what I was doing with my life, let alone having another life. So I didn't think it was going to be a problem. So from 38 to 40, we really started getting heavy involved in fertility.
Okay. How did you find your doctor, first of all? Like, was it recommended from a friend or?
Well, let's put it this way, which doctor?
Okay. So for when you first went to a specialist, how did you figure out who to go to?
I called my insurance company because I had fertility benefits.
Okay.
First thing I did, I called and I asked them who was in network, what were my fertility benefits, and they sent me to RMA. And I went to RMA and we did several IUIs. And then, look, being totally honest, you get an answer that you don't want to hear. So what you do, or what I did, I just went to another doctor.
Okay. So
was telling me
the IUIs weren't working, and what were they saying was happening?
Well, that's the problem, is they weren't saying enough. They weren't telling me what was wrong. They weren't telling me what the issue was. So I didn't like that I wasn't getting answers, and them just telling me, well, you're 38. I'm like, yeah, but plenty of other women have gotten pregnant at 38. I don't think I'm 100. So then I went on to another fertility clinic, and at that fertility clinic I did endless IUIs, and they convinced me eventually to do IVF. So now I was moving into the big time, and I was doing IVF.
So with the IUIs, you do one and then didn't work out. What was happening to you guys, like as a couple and behind the scenes? Like, were you feeling depressed and down? Can we talk about all that? Like this, takes a real toll.
It's funny. It's back then I still thought everything was going to work. It was going to work. I didn't for a moment get too upset when the IUIs didn't work, because in my mind, I thought, well, IVF is going to save the day, right? We're going big time now. No more IUIs. We're doing IVF. And to be honest with you, I never really thought that IVF didn't work. I mean, I was obviously very naive. I thought IVF, that's going to work for us. No problem. I thought IVF was a guarantee. I thought I'm going to go in. And also, my first round of IVF was going to be covered by my insurance. So I thought, this is definitely going to work, right? Because if it doesn't work, well, we don't have $20,000 to do another round of IVF. So I went in for my first IVF, and, doing the injections is something that never gets easy. But I, got shown everything, how to do it all and leading up to it and all of that. And so I was doing the shots and going in for my monitoring, and I could tell that the doctor was starting to get concerned that I had 7 follicles, which, for those that don't know exactly what that means it's an egg that is considered a follicle before it totally develops. And when you do an IVF, they, a 20-year-old woman, when they do an IVF, will hopefully get something like 20 follicles. Well, I was 38 and I had 7, which would be plenty enough for me. And I had 1 follicle grow too fast, too big, and they then could not do an follicle egg retrieval. So I was going to have to then be switched to an IUI again, that's when being let down, depression, and everything kind of started. And I was like, what? This is not supposed to happen like this. Like,
Yeah.
no,
What did that look like for you? Like, what was going on in your life?
my husband and I, we never prepared ourselves that this wouldn't work. This was something that was guaranteed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is no reason why how is this happening to us is what we kept saying. How is this happening to us? We don't understand this. So basically the IVF that got transferred into an IUI was unsuccessful. So I gave up for a while and I said, you know what? This is too much stress. This is too much stress on you and I. Let's just go back to doing things the way we're supposed to do things and just have a lot of sex. And that did not work out either. So we somehow scraped up more money to do another IVF. Looking back at this now, I'm like, what were we thinking?
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't. We applied for a few grants and we were able to get funding through Columbia University and do another IVF. So we're in it again. We're doing another IVF. We do another IVF. They retrieve 5 eggs. I got to the point of retrieval, which was very exciting. And I was like, this is it. And the eggs and the sperm, we did ICSI. The eggs did not develop into embryos fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of it. Now, after that one, that was a doozy to deal with.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
It's okay because this story has a very happy ending. And so that's when depression really hit. I went into a very, very dark place. I had to be put on Lexapro, which God bless Lexapro.
That's okay. I'm a big fan of all the SSRIs. Yes.
Listen, for anybody else who's out there on it or is going through the same thing, Lexapro helped me just catch my breath and say to myself, okay, this is what's going on. I have an amazing life with or without a child. I have an amazing husband, and maybe this isn't the path for us. Maybe this isn't supposed to be.
Okay. Meaning like having children at all.
And, maybe adoption was the best answer. And I was going to catch my breath and I was going to go into that next sort of path of let's look into adoption and whatnot. So I want to say at that point, I was almost turning 40, or I was 40. And I said, that's it. We're not doing any more IVFs. We're not doing any more IUIs. I'm done. And my husband agreed with me. And then you just keep getting here. People just keep telling you stories and they're like, oh, but you have to see this doctor. You have to see this doctor.
This is a miracle worker. This one is the one. Yeah. Did you get a lot of like unsolicited advice at the time?
Oh, all the time, because the thing is that, listen, women, we do want to just help other women, right? And we want everybody to get pregnant and have babies and go through all the things that women get to go through. And I know everybody came from a very good place in giving me all these suggestions. I went to an acupuncturist. I went to this herbal person.
Oh, yeah.
Then went to go see a doctor by the name of Dr. Sammy David in Manhattan, who didn't take insurance. He was the guy that everybody went to and got pregnant. And I was like, well, I need to go and see this guy, right?
How did that go?
I didn't get pregnant.
Okay.
I did not get pregnant. And now I think I was probably 40. Holy moly. I think I was about 43 at this point.
Okay.
And my husband and I decided, okay, we're going to think about adoption now. We are really going to think about adoption seriously, and what those steps are and what that looks like. Because that's even more scary world, because then you hear about these crazy stories where people go through adoptions And they basically help pay for a birth mother and the child. And then the birth mother just says, yeah, I've decided I don't want to give my child up for adoption. So there was like this whole other set of problems, right?
Right. Depending on what state you're in with adoption, there's there's some time where the birth mother has 48 hours, for example, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter to decide, which I understand. But as the intended parent, that is so nerve-wracking. I mean, that's the understatement of the world. But yeah, I get it. It's just like that weird no man's land where you're not sure if it's actually going to happen or not.
Yeah. So that was around 43. 44, we decided to move forward with a adoption agency. And then, of course, the wonderful thing called COVID happened.
How did you find the agency, first of all?
I'm sorry?
How did you find your adoption agency?
Oh, I had heard, I had a friend who she also adopted, and she used this agency, and she said they were amazing. They were great. And I said, well, okay, I know nothing about adoption agencies, so I'm going to go with them. And I can't really say I was that happy with them because I feel as though they took a lot of money from us, and I never heard from them really. I never got calls. I never got, well, we have a birth mother and here's the criteria. It just wasn't enough.
Wow.
However, the saving grace, or the light at the end of the tunnel, was you have to have a home study performed when you are adopting. And I had a home study done, and my social worker, who to this day is still one of my very good friends, she just cared about me and my husband so much that she was, 3 years into adoption, she would call me every 6 months or so and say, don't give up. Don't give up. Your baby's out there. Don't give up. And, after 3 years, you're like, no, I'm thinking about getting another dog. It's working. However, lo and behold, I want to say that August of last year, August of 2022, I found out about something called EmbryoSolution.com. I was very hesitant about this because I've already, between spending money on because you just start to spend money, like you're like, well, I'll make more. I can just afford this. I can afford this. And that really wasn't kind of happening.
Right.
So my husband and I looked into this EmbryoSolution.com, and it was highly recommended by my social worker.
Okay.
And I trusted her immensely. Like, I didn't think I was just going somewhere random, on the dark web. Although we were getting to a point that we would have gone on the dark web to get a baby.
I mean, I would have done anything. I would have too.
Honest here, we would have done anything.
Yeah.
So I had a phone call with Elena from Embryo Solution.
Okay. So tell us what Embryo Solution is for those of us who don't know.
Let's talk about Embryo Solution. So Embryo Solution is an embryo adoption site. And what they basically do is families who have had their babies through IVF and have frozen their eggs and fertilized their eggs and all of that, and now have something called embryos. They've had all the children that they would like. They don't want to destroy the embryos. And they give people like my husband and I an opportunity to have a baby of our own, which, it's not your egg. It's not your sperm biologically, but they take the embryo and they put it inside of you, and the baby grows. And it's just like you carried your own child for 9 months. Not just like you do carry your child for 9 months. And I was very scared about costs because, we were at ridiculous amounts of money as it was.
Yeah.
And I can't begin to tell you how this was a fraction of the cost.
Can you share with us like details on the cost if you don't mind? Okay. Okay.
Which anybody out there who has done this before knows that just one round of IVF can cost anywhere from $12,000 to $17,000.
Right.
Adoption agency. My adoption agency was $10,000 and nothing. These costs get added up. So $5,000 to adopt an embryo.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, that's like nothing.
Okay. So a couple of questions before you move on. Sorry. What did that $5,000 cover? And also, I want to talk about the process of moving on, pivoting to embryo, adoption. And was that hard for you guys to take that next step? Some people grieve their genetics. Obviously, this isn't going to be genetically related to you. We could talk about epigenetics and all that, which I do believe in, but that's a separate conversation. So tell me about those two parts. First, the cost, and then just the, switching to this phase.
So the cost was $5,000. And with that $5,000 also comes along with the agency matching me and my husband up with another family that was a good match for us, right? Ultimately, the family that is donating the embryo, they have the say who they want to donate the embryo to.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are still some more added extra costs. You have to hire your own lawyer, a fertility lawyer, to make sure that, you have a contract with this family and that all of your needs and wants are, going to be in a contract. So that's a little extra added cost. And also, before you can move further in any of this, you have to go to your doctor and you have to get a medical release saying that it's very possible for you to carry a child. I don't think that families who have embryos want to just give away embryos to somebody who can't really carry a child unless they're medically approved by a doctor. So that was the first step in which we got approved for that. So I was approved medically to move forward with the whole process. Then after that, my husband and I made a book, which we already had a book made because we were already going to move forward with just a regular adoption. And we were home study approved. So we had that, we were approved through all those channels to regularly adopt a child. I did not have any sort of feelings of, well, this child isn't going to biologically be mine, because I already gave that up already a long time ago. I was actually more excited that I was going to be able to carry this child. So yes, maybe it's not my egg and maybe it's not my husband's sperm. And maybe the child is not going to be identically looking like us. But I carried that baby for 9 months and I was just thrilled about that, because the other thing you go through with regular adoption is that the birth mother, you have to constantly worry about, are they taking drugs? Are they drinking? Are they going to their doctor's appointments? And now that control was given back to me. I was going to be able to, be the one to say, I'm obviously not going to drink. I'm obviously not going to smoke. And I'm obviously going to do everything in my best ability to have a healthy pregnancy. So I didn't go through that maybe some other women might go through, that they say, well, biologically, this child isn't mine. Mm-hmm. I didn't have those feelings. If anything, I wish I would have known about embryo adoption years ago, because mm-hmm. I would have done this years ago. I wouldn't have waited until I'm 47. But, mm-hmm. but things happen when they're supposed to happen, I believe. So, even though I wish I did this earlier, that wasn't my time. This is my time now. This is when mm-hmm. it was going to happen to me. So I feel as though I got this incredible opportunity, and whenever it came around, I'm just going to take it.
Yep.
I do have times, don't get me wrong. I do have times of, doing the math and going, wow. So when my son is 10, I'm going to be 57. Wow. Like,
right.
a lot to handle.
This episode is sponsored by Mosey Baby. If you are listening right now, you know that wanting a baby can be simple, but trying to conceive can be the most stressful thing in the world. But thanks to Mosey Baby, it doesn't have to be. Mosey Baby founders Maureen and Mark struggled to conceive for 2.5 years. When they couldn't find an easy and comfortable way to inseminate at home, they decided to make the product themselves, and that's how Mosey Baby was born. Created with insight from a fertility specialist, Mosey is the first patented syringe designed for home insemination and has been helping families inseminate privately at home since 2015. Before you spend thousands of dollars in a doctor's office, consider Mosey Baby and make a baby with love through insemination. Curious? Learn more about the Mosey Baby Kit and read some of the amazing stories from the Mosey community at try.moseybaby.com/infertileaf. Again, that's try.moseybaby, MOSIEBABY.com/infertileaf. Use code INFERTILEF for 15% off your order at checkout and join the 100,000 plus families who have included Mosey on their journeys to conceive. Thanks, Mosey Baby. I think that with my little guy too, because, I had him when I was 41.
Okay, right.
So, I'm like at the college parents' weekend, they're going to be like, why is your grandma here? It's not that old.
All of
but
that too.
Yeah.
I've thought about that. I've thought about dropping my child off at kindergarten and being like, oh, your grandma's here? And I'm like, oh God.
I know.
But you know what? This is my story. This is my path. This is what I wanted. And, if anything, it makes you sort of think about your own mortality and think about, well, I better do a lot more than I have been to keep this life going now that I'm going to have a little person in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I if I had the chance to do it all over again, yes, I probably would have done this years ago if I would have known about it. I never even heard of embryo adoption. FYI.
Right. Can we talk a little bit more about the process? So how did you actually sync up with the people that you did end up working with?
So basically, Elena from Embryo Solution, she takes our sort of portfolio or book, as you want to call it, about my husband and I, and she sends that to families that are looking for the same sort of people to donate their embryo, like what they are looking for, and we share the same wants and needs. And I was very adamant about the fact that I wanted to have an open relationship, because some people have closed adoptions and that's it. You have no information about, anything moving forward. And I just thought, well, God forbid something happens with my child if I don't know the health history. I want to be able to have an open relationship. So literally, it's just kind of crazy the way this works, is that fact that I've waited years for a regular adoption with a birth mother. Within 2 weeks, I was medically approved. I found my fertility doctor, Sheer Fertility in Manhattan. God love them. They were absolutely amazing. I found my doctor. I did all my tests. I did everything. And within 2 weeks, Elena had a family for us, which I couldn't believe.
How did it feel when you got that call?
Well, I'll tell you what's really, it was shocking that it was like a call. And then it's even more shocking that she sends you the profile on the family. So I saw pictures of the kids. I saw pictures of the parents. I got to read every single medical detail that anybody could want to know. There was no alcoholism in the family. There was no drug use. The biological mother had, no history of this in her family. So you got like a perfect medical history on both people. You got to see their children, which is just crazy knowing that this is going to be my child's sibling, which that takes a long time to digest, but we'll get back into that. And it just seemed like a perfect match for us from the very beginning. Also, the other thing that we were very excited about was they share the same nationality as my husband and I. So the biological mother was Swiss and German. My husband is Swiss and German.
Wow.
And the biological father was Irish and British. And I'm British and Italian. So we make this.
Wow.
Everybody's got a little Italian in them. So we'll just put a little Italian in our child. It'll be fine. So we just knew it was a go. And they were also open to open adoption, meaning that we could contact them and we could ask questions. And twice a year, we will send them an update and pictures of our baby and all of that. And at 21, our child has the option to meet its other siblings.
Okay.
We have made a decision that we will be open and honest with our child from day one, that we are your mother and father. However, biologically, you know, I don't know how we're going to phrase it yet. I haven't gotten there yet, but we will be open and honest from day one about this. Because it's important. I don't think that's fair for a child to find out at later on in life that biologically that they're not yours or something. And also that's, to me, that's just making it seem like there's something wrong with that. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so that happened within the first 2 weeks that we started moving forward.
Okay.
Then you unfortunately have the whole lawyer conversation, and your lawyers have to come up with the contract, which, look, it was fine. And then I think 2 or 3 months later, because it takes a while to get your body prepped for all of this.
Mm-hmm. And what did that prep entail? Like, what was the protocol for the transfer that you were going to have? Like, was it different than when you were doing, IVF fully?
Like, it was basically kind of like an IVF. I was giving myself injections every day. However, I was not giving myself injections in order to produce more follicles, right? Because I'm just giving myself injections to make my uterus sort of like a warm, fuzzy environment for another embryo to live in. That was longer, way longer than IVF. That was almost 3.5 weeks that we had to do, just prepping the uterus and all of this stuff to make sure that my uterus lining was thicker. I also consulted one of my old acupuncturists, and she told me to not eat raw foods. And, this was my chance again. And I was doing everything everybody told me to do. Sleep with socks on, keep your feet warm, don't eat cold vegetables, don't eat anything raw, don't drink anything cold. I listened to everybody. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
And so I did about 3 weeks of injections, which really wasn't a big deal because this was different this time, right? Like, I was still nervous that was it going to work, but I had a better chance at this working than anything before. Mm-hmm. And then I went in for the embryo implantation, which was basically just like an IUI, but so much cooler because on the screen, you could see them transfer the embryo in this tube into your uterus, and you're awake. It's not a painful process whatsoever. You're laying there as you would at the gynecologist, except there's a screen. They have a sonogram on your stomach, so you can see the tube being inserted, and then the embryo coming through the tube and kind of sticking. And that was just amazing. And then, for the next 10 days after that, you are just praying and hoping and wishing let this embryo, like, let it stick, baby, stick.
Absolutely.
And it stuck. It stuck.
So did you do any early testing, or did you wait to go in for your beta, or how did you find out that?
I went in, I waited and went in for my beta. I went in for my beta because I knew I would get myself too crazy, which is only like 10 days later, which are the longest 10 days of your life, obviously. Even women going through IVF know that, you
Totally.
know, you're waiting those 10 days and you're like, oh my God, did it work? Did it not work? I don't know. Do I feel something? Am I anxious? Is my smell heightened? Like,
You're like, are my boobs sore? Am I cramping? Like, what are the, you start to symptom spot. And then were you like going online and comparing yourself or anything like that? Yeah.
Oh, yes. I was comparing myself. I was thinking to myself, do things smell different? I don't know. I think they smell different. Do you smell that? And I kept saying to my husband, do you smell that? And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. And he's like, take a deep breath. Let's not do this. And I was like, I know. I also went in and did more acupuncture because they say that the acupuncture, you want to draw the blood to the uterus. So I did more acupuncture. And then I started having some weird sort of symptoms that I was like, this feels a little strange. And then my beta blood work was the next day. And I went in and I had my blood work done. And I think it was like 6-7 hours later, I can't remember, they called me and told me I was pregnant. And I mean, like, it's just so mind-blowing that it's been over a 10-year journey. And that one person calling you on the phone and is like, congratulations, your pregnancy test is positive. You're like, oh my God, did you really just utter those words? Like, this really worked?
One phone call that changes your life.
Oh my God, changes your life. I'll never forget where I was. I'll never forget what I was doing. Like, I will never forget any of it. And, they said, but listen, we're still in the beginning stage. I was like, listen, I'll take the beginning stage, everything right now. I said, okay. And they said, I had to go back like 2 days later or 3 days later for another blood work to really confirm everything. And I went back and everything was confirmed. And then I went back. You're still at the fertility clinic for all of this. And then I went back to the fertility clinic and they did the first sonogram, and you just there's no heartbeat yet. There's no nothing. You're just like this. There's like this little avocado in there and you don't know what you're looking at, but you're just like, but that's real. Like that, like that's really in there. So yeah, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind blowing to me. And this will never get old, is the sense that you could take an embryo and put it inside of a woman and it will grow, whether it's her embryo or it's not her embryo.
It's so cool.
Science is amazing.
Science is amazing. And I feel like it's still IVF, and the whole process and this whole field is still so young, right? It's only 40 something years old, young 40s. So think about all the advancements that are going to take place, in the future too. It's just very cool to think about.
I just hope it becomes easier and easier for more women like me. And I hope that more and more women find out about embryo adoption, that I never knew about it. But what I did want to say also was, going through all of this, I do live in New York, or New York, New Jersey. I found out that surrogacy was only legal in New York State only about 3 years ago.
I know. I went to Albany to help talk about that. Amazing. And to lobby for it. And yeah. So tell me about the pregnancy thus far. I know that, did you have any anxiety, or was it kind of like once you got pregnant, then you felt okay, this is happening?
Once I hit the 12-week mark, I was like, this is happening. Because you're still so nervous about everything. Once we hit the 12-week mark, and we found out that in our scan, everything looked good. The baby didn't have any issues whatsoever. Then we were like, really like we could calm down and like catch our breaths a little bit, and we weren't holding our breath, so to speak. It felt great, but I will tell you this: nobody gives you the Cliff Notes on pregnancy until you're pregnant, because I have had very strange ailments. I mean, real strange ailments. One day I broke out in a rash. It was gone the next day. One day I had like my lymph nodes were swollen. They were gone the next day. I've called my poor doctor every time something strange happens, and he's like, yeah, welcome to being pregnant.
Yeah. What are some of them? Can you give some examples?
Oh, the lymph nodes in my armpits were really something, because I felt like I just had golf balls in my armpits. And of course, I asked every single one of my friends who have had multiple children. They were like, yeah, no, I never had that one. And I was like, oh, good. Acid reflux. That's a fun one. That's a real fun one. I've never had acid reflux my whole life. Thank you. Until recently, I basically can't eat anything with tomatoes because it just acid reflux right back. Now that I'm 6 months, I am starting to find it a little bit hard getting in and out of bed, putting shoes on. Oh, and the other thing that's just so crazy is going to actually put on maternity clothes. I mean, it's just so strange. And you try to tell yourself, like, you're really excited that you're wearing maternity clothes because you're like, I've done this. It's worked. I'm pregnant. But you also want to like fight yourself on it where you're like, I could still fit in this kind of,
Right.
And you're like trying to suck yourself into the shirt, and it's just not working.
Totally.
And
I still have a maternity skirt from when I was pregnant with Ever, who is about to turn 14.
Oh my God.
And I still wear it. Because it was like a fold over top, like from like the Gap or something like that. And it's so funny. Every time I put it on, I'm like, this is a maternity skirt. I'm like,
doesn't matter. It's still anything that's loose around the stomach and folds over, you can wear that.
Right.
So yeah. And now we're getting, now we're getting to really thinking about like birth. Oh, hi, birth. Yeah, that's happening. Which, I mean, I don't want to say I'm terrified, but I'm slightly terrified because that it's got to happen. But I almost don't want to know too many of the details.
Right.
I just want to show up at the hospital and just like take it out. Just get him out. Don't tell me too much about it. Just let's get this done. So it's crazy how you go from one path to another. And these 9 months, although I'm only at 6, it's something different.
Right. Can we circle back? You mentioned the siblings thing and how, when your child is 21, being able to contact if possible. Now, but you said, you wanted to talk a little bit more about your thoughts on that. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
And I'm glad you brought it up because I should also give some more information about this. So the family that donated our embryos to us, and I say embryos, we have 2 embryos.
Okay.
We have a boy, which we have implanted, and I have a female embryo on why is the word escaping me? Frozen. Thank you.
On ice.
On ice. I wanted to say on ice, but I was like, so we have a female embryo on ice. Look, I don't know if I'm getting around to having another child, but I love having the option, which, options didn't come to me in these past years. So I love the fact that I have the option. If I decide not to have the second female child, I will have to give that back to my donors so they can make the decision of who else should get it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. I get it. It's biologically their embryo. And I think that they're amazing people for giving this opportunity to somebody else like me. And if they want to make the decision who that goes to, I'm fine with that. That was another.
Do you have a limit? Like, is there a limit of like when you need to decide by
No,
okay.
No. They did not give me any limit. They just said, to me in our legal agreement that if I should choose not to proceed with having the second embryo, that I would return it to them and they would be making a decision of another family to give it to.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of that before. Okay.
Yeah. So they have 2 children. They have 2 boys. They had 4 embryos still left. I have 2.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 2 other families out there that have a boy and a girl.
Okay.
And so I'm having a boy. So my son already has 3 brothers and a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And when they are all 21, they are allowed to meet, if they want to. If they don't want to, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
But, I can only raise my child the best that I can with me and my husband giving him everything that he could possibly want in life. And I feel as though I am older, and if he chooses to, I don't want to say find family, because we will be his family and we have a very large family, but if he chooses to be friends with brothers and sisters of his, I wouldn't want to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would hope that when he reaches the age of 21, I have made him feel very secure with himself that no matter what, we are his mother and his father,
Mm-hmm.
that, nobody else is going to take away his family unit. They can only add to it. And what's wrong with more people that love you in this world? Nothing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the more people, the better.
Yeah.
I do worry about how I tell him this and at what age. But, I have friends who, actually, my amazing lawyer told me that it's incredible the kind of books that are out there about how do 2 lesbian moms tell their children about, who their father is, and
Mm-hmm.
how, 2 gay males tell their child who their child's mother is. I just feel like you don't keep secrets from a child. You tell
Mm-hmm.
them from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell them that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think normalizing it as early as possible is really important. Yeah. I actually have a children's book coming out about IVF later this year.
I'm gonna read that one.
Yeah, but it's all about, my son finding out and figuring out what is IVF and all that stuff, and again, I think there's just not enough resources still. And so the more, the better in my mind. And, I'm hoping it will become a series and it will be all different family building journeys, including embryo adoption. So maybe we'll tell your story.
If I can help in any sort of way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just waiting to find the right other woman out there who is like looking for another option of having a child, and she's going to hear my story, and
Mm-hmm.
she's going to have the same opportunity as I have.
Yeah.
I never heard of embryo adoption. Even in the beginning, when I was going to doctors to find the right doctor to take care of me, they never heard of embryo adoption.
You're kidding.
No.
That blows my mind.
It blew my mind, because they were like, wait, so you adopted an embryo? And I was like, yeah, doesn't everybody know about this? And they're like,
Oh my God.
No. And I was like, oh, okay. But
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that there's that one woman out there that hears this story who is like me and going through all of this, whether she's married, single, a lesbian, I don't care. Just as long as somebody else gets the opportunity like I got.
All right, guys. And thank you again to Heather Passaro. Definitely check out Embryo Adoption. She worked with embryosolution.com, so you can check them out if you'd like. And also, don't forget to check out Fertility Rally if you're looking for a community, support groups. We have private Facebook groups. We have events, both virtual and IRL. It's just a community of badasses who are really there to help each other navigate the shittiest times. We are not called the worst club, with the best members for nothing. So definitely check us out on Instagram at Fertility Rally. Check out our website at fertilityrally.com. Save the date too for our next Fertility Rally Live, totally free virtual event, which is happening on October 21st, 2023. So that is coming up soon and it's going to be awesome. We have a really good keynote speaker that we will announce soon. And you can also check me out on Infertile AF Stories on Instagram too if you guys have any questions or need anything. But just sending love to anybody who's having a tough time, and I will talk to you guys next time.